Hi, my name is John Barrett from PM Consultants, and today I'm joined with Garrett Loesch, who is the Chief Financial Officer for the Borough of Tuckerton. Garrett, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome here.
Wonderful. So, Garrett, before you became the CFO of Borough of Tuckerton, you served as the administrator of a municipality, and a lot of our viewers don't understand ultimately what an administrator does. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you here today. So, in a form of government, you have some certain mandatory positions. You have a tax collector, you have a chief financial officer, a municipal clerk, and tax assessor. But in some towns where the governing body wants, in essence, to delegate the CEO duties of the town, they hire an administrator, and that's what you did for a number of years, correct?
Yeah. You'll hear him referred to as a town manager, a town administrator, a business administrator. And really that is, the role is to oversee all the duties of the town. You oversee all the departments. You're the mouth for the council, and you achieve their goals.
Goals and agendas, of course. And of course, when you say department heads, whether it be your public works department, your police department, the finance department, ultimately they all report to you, and your job is to manage those. And obviously not over-manage them when if the department heads can run their departments just fine. But ultimately, in the chain of command, the buck stops at your desk, literally, correct?
Absolutely does.
Yeah, so how many, when you did it as an administrator, I think, having known other administrators, do you deal with the public on a daily basis? Are you handling phone calls from cranky residents about some issue that they might have?
The residents' first call is actually to the town and to me. My phone would ring. They'd have the complaints, whether it be about taxes, about a water spill, about not getting plowed snow fast enough, about wanting this done or that done. And I usually would handle those situations in the utmost speed and care and within the budget. Residents do like to have someone in town they can talk to, and the mayor isn't always there, the council isn't always there, so they come to the administrator.
Right, because normally in a governing body for a town of this size or a local size, that they are not full-time employees. In fact, they get a few $1,000s as a stipend. Some politicians say, I don't want to get that money. I'd rather do this for free. It's public service. But ultimately, when a resident gets aggravated, chances are they're going to come to the council meeting, and chances are they're going to get in front of the microphone for the few minutes that they have time to speak. And ultimately, they're going to present a grievance to the governing body, some want, wish, or desire. And I think probably 9 times out of 10, the governing body will usually turn to the administrator on the dais and say, in this case, Mr. Loesch, would you like to follow up with Mr. Smith regarding this matter? So I know in seeing you work with the residents so greatly, I mean, certainly 20,000 residents who could pick a phone call up or send you an email and respond to. I've often seen when you work with residents, you try to, I guess, I would say, put out the brush fires before they become forest fires. You try to deal with the residents over the phone with empathy, with guidance. Sometimes it's just informing them of something that they have no knowledge of. So that type of care that you've obviously expressed to others is something that avoids people having to come to council meetings, right? If you can dress something.
I actually discourage them coming and doing a public question to the council, and the mayor and council. I would prefer to allow them, even if I can't answer it on the initial phone call, I'll invite them in for a meeting in my office, and we'll go over matters. Again, your job is to satisfy the residents and the taxpayers of the town to the best of your abilities. And they do not understand, often they do not understand the complexity of how government works.
Right, because they didn't go to classes for this. They're residents who, for whatever reason, their garbage wasn't picked up, or I often joke that their neighbor's dog pooped on their yard and there's some grievance there. And ultimately, I guess your job is to kind of become peacemaker, right?
In some cases, it might be an ordinance needs to be revised. They're complaining about the neighbor having chickens, and our ordinance doesn't deal with raising chickens or how to care for.
Right, because when a town does ordinances or their code or so, there are things that evolve, and certainly a lot of folks in the last few years, certainly during COVID, have wanted to do chicken farms and have a few self-sustainable, to get a dozen or two eggs, which right now are very profitable. But back in the day, you have to balance it out with the folks who are living downwind from a chicken coop, because that's not a pleasant smell. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
I'm also I was administrator in a shore community, so we also had the problems of tidal waters and storms and waters blowing in on the road. Many people purchased homes on the water and didn't realize that there might be a nor'easter that comes up the coast and puts water on the road.
Yeah.
They're calling me to say, how come there's water on my road?
And one of the towns that you did work in, I think had, during Hurricane Sandy, had over 4,000 properties get wet.
Close to 5,000.
For 5,000. And that was devastating, because obviously people were uprooted, they couldn't use their homes. And then you had sought some federal financing in order to kind of bridge the gap there, to bring some federal relief to the municipal budget in order to mitigate the loss of those assessments. Because once again, the tax assessor came in, and if you can't use your property, they might reduce it to about 10% of its normal value.
That is correct. Superstorm Sandy was very, very difficult in any town that was affected with the storm. Federal funding through community disaster loans to FEMA reimbursements, and many others. I mean, I spent a lot of time going back and forth to Trenton or to Toms River, since we're in Ocean County, and attending different meetings, trying to learn different avenues that we could go and how we could apply. You become an expert at filling out FEMA forms. I mean, there were towns that just hired a company to handle it all. I was a little more frugal than that and said, we'll handle it within.
Right.
But what I didn't think about was how many days straight I was going to work over the next 6 months.
Right. There were ultimately, and listen, during Hurricane Sandy, I know firsthand working with you that your emergency response, I mean, the town you were working in, it seemed like you were working 24/7. In fact, we were just talking earlier about how you had to use a bucket truck to save people.
To save
who
people.
Were otherwise,
we drove her through 4 feet of water to rescue people from their homes.
Right. In fact, during Hurricane Sandy, in this community we're speaking of, there were people who actually, if they lived in a low-lying ranch home, actually, when the floodwaters filled their house up, were swimming over to break into a second-story home.
Yes, they were.
Right. So it's kind of crazy when
We're
you
on
think
their
about
roofs. Unfortunately, that community, we did lose one soul. But even the aftermath, the amount of work and effort that had to go into replacing equipment. In that case, I had probably 3/4 of my police force vehicles suffered water damage and were totaled by insurance, and they weren't necessarily readily available to buy. The state does allow some different fiscal areas during an emergency, so I was able to bypass and able to purchase things. The trucks in Public Works and Water Sewer did not get totaled as quickly as they should have, because they weren't emergency vehicles in the eyes of the insurance companies. It became drastic.
So one final question. Was there ever a boring day working as an administrator, or was it fun-filled and kept you busy for the entire day?
I'm a glass is half full, so to me they're always enjoyable. If I'm able to help a resident, if I'm able to satisfy someone's needs, I feel fulfilled. So I felt that was a good day. You also spend time negotiating and working on contracts with employees. That can be very difficult because it creates tension. You hire and fire and produce contracts, but ultimately it goes to the mayor and council to do the final vote.
Right. But ultimately, if you had to discipline an employee, obviously reward an employee, but ultimately the hard jobs you have in doing this is sometimes having to say goodbye to an employee.
You have to I was taught many years ago that you look at a picture on your desk of your family when you're going to issue discipline, because the person you're bringing in to give discipline to, you're doing your job for your family, and they did not do their job for their family. And doesn't make it any better. You still feel sick that you had to fire someone or in that manner. But I didn't do it. I'm doing my job, and I'm doing it for in that case, the 22,000 residents of the town.
Right, and I'm sure, having lived in the same town you were an administrator in, you know, seeing folks that you disciplined, seeing folks that maybe you took a hard position to with regard to a contract negotiation, and then you see them at the local supermarket, and maybe you get a mean look from them, maybe you have an attitude, and also I'm sure you also probably meet people that are very thankful for you for all the work you've done for that community.
You do get the rewards and the non-rewards.
Right.
Again, when you look at things in a positive nature, you tend to see the rewards and not the issues. But there was always some that feel negative vibes against you, and they treat you that way.
Yeah.
And that's part of the business.
Part of the business. Well, listen, Garrett, thank you so much for being here, showing our viewers a little bit about what a business administrator is like and what the job responsibilities are. And I wish you continued success in your work in municipal government.
Pleasure I could help you out.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Garrett.
you.